Welcome to the Accounting Arc Podcast, where analysis, reaction, and comedy collide to tackle the big topics from the world of accounting and beyond. Join our trio of transformation agents as they discuss the hottest topics in and out of the profession, from breaking down industry trends, to reacting to everyday events, to uncovering the hidden humor in numbers. With wisdom, insight, and a dash of levity, they're proving that accounting isn't just about the numbers. It's about life. Because after all, accounting is in everything. The Accounting Arc Podcast starts now.
Right, welcome back everyone to another episode of Accounting Arc. We are here today. I actually just watched this video about Amazon returns, and it kind of got me really thinking like, wow, there's a ton of accounting implications to the way these returns are handled. And so I shared the video with Liz and Byron, and we're basically going to do a reaction and kind of talk about some of these things. So let me frame it first. So the video starts off where it's really looking at Amazon returns and the problem with Amazon returns. And the first part of the video is really painting the picture of, as a small business owner, the impact of Amazon returns and how it's sometimes I think it was 3 or 4 times the volume of return, dollar volume of returns compared to returns through sales through other channels. The video continued on to explain some of the different options that Amazon has for the returns, how it's good or bad. Mostly it's positioning it as bad and all the problems with that. And then it actually introduces as well the return handlers. So the people that are buying the returns having to go through, make sure the product is still resellable, and then actually get the resale. So that's kind of the picture it's painting. Of course, it's making Amazon look really bad on a lot of this, but I also was looking at a lot of that and I was like, well, but this is a business decision to sell through Amazon, so we can't totally blame them. We also have to look at the sellers and how are they making these decisions? Because if you want the increased revenue from Amazon sales, it's gonna come with the increased returns. That's just a given. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So that's kind of what I saw there. I'll open the floor to the two of you. And Liz, you actually work with a lot of these e-commerce, right? So you're probably our best one to kind of give us perspective here.
Well, I think, the life cycle of it is really interesting. And understanding what happens to products, even how the warehousing works and how there's, intermediary companies for warehousing and shipping, and the entire life cycle of an e-commerce company is really fascinating. And also, when it comes to Amazon, you have lots of fees, and also they make it easy to return things because they're very customer centric. And so there are reasons to do business with them. There are reasons not to do business with them. And all of that comes down to so many different factors. And so I think if we dive into different pieces of the business, it's easier to explain the details and understand what's happening in actuality and what decisions people are making, right? But I think the biggest decision that is made is to enter the e-commerce business at point one, right? And if you are selling a product, there will be waste. And that is a decision that every e-commerce business has made and come to terms with at the forefront, right? Now, how to mitigate waste, even packaging waste or shipping waste, right? There are so many places along the life cycle of these businesses where there's waste. So yes, this is the thing.
Well, and I think it's similar to a lot of other industries as well. You look at restaurant industry, right? And there's a lot of waste that it goes into running a restaurant, and all of that stuff from a business perspective has to be considered when evaluating your cost. And which I think is probably the challenge that a lot of small business owners run into, is they just don't have the understanding of all of those costs that go into it. And my future wife also has an accounting firm. She had a client who was it still sells a lot of product on Amazon, and to this day, he doesn't understand why he's not more profitable. And it's a pure lack of understanding of all of these factors. He just sees this top line of sales and assumes he's making, gobs of money. And I think it's hard for the average the small business owner to really understand all of the moving parts, and then this return policy stuff and waste is can be so complicated to navigate and comprehend.
Absolutely. So do we want to start at the beginning, right? So the first decision is, okay, I have an idea for a product. I think it's unique. I would like to sell it. Now what? Like, do you build a Shopify site and sell it independently? Do you put it on Amazon? And what are the costs of doing that, right? And granted, there's a few other options as well, and ways that you can, like with like WooCommerce, there's a bunch of different options outside of just Shopify. But typically today in the US, what we see is people but deciding between independent selling and Amazon selling. And there's Walmart Marketplace as well, which is very similar to Amazon. But why, at the forefront, why do people go on Amazon? Marketing.
Yep. Huge
That's
storefront.
it, right? Like there are people that go there to look for products. And if you position your product well and you maximize where it's going to show up in your Amazon listing, just like we think about SEO for a normal business, you're paying for leads effectively, and you're paying for new clients, and you're paying Amazon to do that for you, versus if you have an independent site, and we've all been followed by targeted marketing ads, you have to do that to get your product out there on the other side. So it's a business decision of what resources do I have right now? And for a lot of businesses, they don't have the resources to launch these full scale marketing campaigns that follow you with pixels through all the social media sites and target you for ads. They just don't have the budget to do that up front. And so they're paying Amazon via a percentage of the revenue that they're taking in to do that marketing for them and to build market share. And so while you might not like that Amazon returns are what, 3 times higher than traditional, and there's a lot of waste and there's a lot of other things, you're still getting a benefit for it. And that's a business decision in and of itself, right?
That's absolutely right. And that's all of those considerations that people have to keep in mind, because you're getting a lot of benefit to be sitting on those shelves where millions of eyeballs are seeing your product and you have those opportunities to sell. I can remember years ago, when Walmart was the largest retailer in the world, before
Mm-hmm.
Amazon had taken over, and they were very aggressive with their pricing to retailers because they knew they had the largest distribution in the world of their products. And there were stories of businesses making terrible decisions. One was a pickle company that Walmart strong-armed into selling a 5-gallon bucket of pickles for like $7.99 or something, which was a huge loss, but they chose to do it just to be on the Walmart shelves. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people aren't always looking at the full picture of the benefit or the cost of having that quote unquote benefit of being part of the largest marketplaces.
Right. Which is why I come back to, I think that's a real important part of our job as the accountant. I mean, obviously, we just listening to Liz, and this is the importance of having an industry specialization, is actually understanding not just the final number and transactions, but how the industry actually works. Because what I heard Liz say was, well, this is actually a decision on what type of marketing spend. Either you're going to spend up front and get a good marketing consultant. Because that was kind of my first reaction was, well, if you didn't go through there, then you'd be spending money on marketing. So I'm glad to hear you kind of reaffirm that. But that is a business decision. I'm either spending it up front or I'm going to spend it at the end in effectively cost of goods sold through the form of returns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is very, very difficult to judge upfront what those costs are going to be from a return perspective. because you don't know how the market's going to like the product. You don't know if it's going to last really well. Like what testing has been done on it, right? What are the competitors and what do they look like in comparison? And there's a lot of work that has to be done on any product business to have confidence in what that looks like and to eliminate sales or reduce the numbers of them. And that is something that a lot of product companies look at and think about. And we as accountants measure and help them figure out what the numbers are and what, KPIs matter to their business. And at the same time, like when you start, you don't know a lot of time. You just have no idea. Like
Sure.
you can look at similar stats for businesses that sell similar products, but it's not the same manufacturing that you're using. It's not exactly the same design. It's maybe not even the same packaging. And packaging has a huge impact on the way products are received and used. And, a lot of times that's overlooked or done in a bad way, and then stuff shows up broken.
Oh yeah, no doubt there.
And
But I think there's also some things that companies can do to even like be proactive. I've seen many times where I've received packages that will have something in there that says, if you have questions, do not just return it to Amazon, contact us here, and those types of things to be proactive. And then there's other things that, that don't really do that at all, which also from a messaging perspective, I bet most consumers have no idea there's a lot of small businesses supplying those products to Amazon. They just assume Amazon is selling all of it. So their behavior is kind of like, well, it's a large company. They're making a lot of money. I can return things and it's not hurting anybody. So I feel like small businesses who are selling there can probably do a better job of marketing the fact that they're a small business supplying that stuff and take some proactive measures to try to like get ahead of potential abuses in those return policies.
And the other thing I do really appreciate that Amazon does, they have a lot of faults. They're a big evil corporation, and you can say all the BS you want about them, but there are a few things that they do well. And one of them is they have specific listings for like Black History Month, and they show you
Sure.
sellers that are owned by African Americans. They also show you women-owned businesses, and they are giving that information about the small business, about the ownership, about who you're supporting in different ways, right? And I think that it might not, for a lot of people, they're not thinking about that. They're not looking at it. They don't understand that Amazon is just a marketplace and they also have their own products, right? And
Yeah.
so there's a lot that Amazon sells themselves. There's a lot that Amazon sells for other people. And then there's the marketplace, right? And so there's multiple buckets there to begin with. But once you dig into it, it does say sold by, and it says the company or the storefront or whatever it is very clearly. And so if people have a base level understanding of how this works, they can see that and know like this is not just, it might say fulfilled by Amazon versus fulfilled by this company in their own warehouse or, a licensed warehouse or a drop ship company. But at the same time, that information is available if people look for it. Um, and they do try to support small business by showing these things. Now, on the referral fees, and that is the primary source of revenue to Amazon from these small businesses, is called a referral fee. And that goes back to they're referring the business, they are finding the new product purchasers for your thing, and you're paying them a referral fee. There's also some platform fees, there's also listing fees, there's a whole list of fees that happen, but the biggest one is that referral fee. And that can be anywhere from like 8 to 50%, depending on what you're selling. And it gets expensive. And there's a reason why a lot of small businesses don't understand all the fees they're paying and what they're agreeing to,
Right.
because it's multiple different kinds of fees and it gets very convoluted.
Oh yeah, picking apart those statements is a jigsaw puzzle. I've spent a
Hmm.
lot of time looking at those statements, trying to figure out which fee is what and reconciling to the actual cash that is received. And it is not simple.
Mm-mm.
I would expect very few people to be non-accountants to be able to put it together. And even as a CPA, I've had a hard time making those numbers add up.
No, totally understand that. But that's part of the reason why we use intermediary type
Sure.
connectors. Like we use A to X to be able to take this information, interpret it, and put it into accounting terms for us and connect it so that you know what the sales are, you know what the taxes are, you know what the fees are, and everything else
Yeah.
in between. And that means a lot to business owners, and many times they don't know how to set that up. So that goes back to your point, Donnie, which is you need to engage a professional that actually knows what they're doing because this is convoluted. It is confusing, and you could end up with just a lump sum of fees that you don't even know, and then you're not remitting your sales tax appropriately, or you don't know what your actual cost of doing business is.
In today's world, cyber threats don't just target big businesses. They target you. Your small office or home office is at risk.
There are a lot of solutions out there. Not all of them have the same level of security. The Soho Protection Package is designed to provide proactive cybersecurity solutions.
If your firm is looking for assistance in developing your personalized IT policy, connect with an advisor today at link.improvetheworld.net/Soho Cyber. Gain peace of mind that you have the right technology in place to stay protected.
I'm glad you went there because that's where I was starting to think too, was the whole there's sales tax implications to this. And if you really become successful, now you're gonna start to have other get subject to other jurisdictions, not just your
Mhm.
own. Depending upon whether it's considered a sales agent, you might end up creating Nexus and other places, right? There's like all
Yep.
this stuff now that is again, you need someone trained, not just any, it's not even just any CPA. You need someone that's sales tax, which may not be a CPA to also.
Yeah. And looking at Nexus ongoing, not just one time, and being like, okay, here's your Nexus, move on, right? And I think that that is where e-commerce in the last 15 years has had the most issues, right? Is you have all of these states passing economic nexus rules, and the economic nexus rules are different, and it applies to different businesses in different ways. And the thresholds are changing. And it makes it very difficult to figure that out. And then there's also the side of like, when is the income apportioned? Is it only when the market is there, or is it when you're actually like having a warehouse there? And generally speaking, if you have a warehouse in a state, you're going to pay tax in that state. But which sales, right? Like which sales count? And that becomes a whole nother layer of fun for us to figure out.
Well, and especially, it's rare that anybody's just selling on one platform, right? So you're
Mhm.
selling on Amazon, you're selling on Shopify, you're probably selling on, somewhere else. And so then not only do you have the complexity, but you now need to reconcile the total sales transactions from all of these systems in all of these jurisdictions. I mean, it's the days of just selling like you're running a lemonade stand have gone. It's a very complex business.
Well, and Liz has been saying a lot about states, but then the other thing is that it becomes a global marketplace as well. So
Oh
I
yeah.
I I had one potential client that was actually, it would their model was interesting. They were a essentially a sales tax, or actually I think it's VAT, tax compliance I'm gonna call it agency in air quotes, because they were collecting and helping to pay on behalf of the Amazon sellers that weren't in Canada, but they were the Canadian, again, quote, agency, not government side, but on the seller side to
Mhm.
collect and remit the tax, the tax to the Canadian government and provinces. I was
Wow.
like, wow, I didn't even realize this was a whole business just by itself. But they were a firm that just did that for like literally thousands of Amazon resellers.
Yeah,
Wow.
and there's a few companies working on some tech around that as well for tax remittance because it does get so convoluted and difficult. It's so hard in many states just to file your sales tax reports, never mind like pay them appropriately. That businesses do this wrong all the time, and that I think is the biggest area of risk for these companies because they just don't know what they don't know. And the rules are not straightforward. And so, and granted, there haven't been a ton of audits, but when there are, that's when companies get shut down. But it also applies to retail, right? Like I can tell you the story of my favorite bagel place in New York City growing up was H&H Bagel, and you would go in there and they pretty much only took cash and they pretty much didn't pay sales tax. And the state of New York audited them at some point and said the volume of bagels being produced on a daily basis that we can observe and the amount of revenue being reported are not lining up. Like, this makes no sense. So clearly you have not paid sales tax since you started, and we're going to assess you millions of dollars in back taxes. And also, imply that you were fraudulently doing this. And they had to shut down. I think they ended up selling their brand and somebody else bought it. And, there is, I think, still one H&H location. But at the end of the day, like, that was awful. And it wasn't that hard for the state to figure it out. And granted, like, they could go in and observe it, but we're getting to the point where inventory is very documented. And so, there is a track of everything you have, everything you're buying, everything that's produced, and the state can come in and figure out sales tax super easily. And so it's a huge area of risk, and people just don't even think about it. And quite frankly, Amazon does make that easier in some cases because they tell you, and they're very good at calculating what state the sales tax goes to, and withholding it. And so they at least give you that information to be able to start somewhere. And so there are marketing benefits. There's benefits to like getting launched, even understanding how to run an e-commerce business. Like, Amazon has a website after website teaching you how to do these things, offering their own solutions mostly, but solutions and places to start and like ways to start and so many different options to build a company on their platform, clearly because they make a ton of money off of it. And also it does give that education, that information, and that opportunity to people that might not otherwise have it. So there's benefits despite all of the waste and all of the fees.
We keep talking about the waste, and that was one of the other things. I mean, the whole kind of second half of the video, or at least half of the video interspersed throughout, kind of talked about that waste. And that was the other thing that was kind of nagging at me on the side, because I look at that and I go, oh my God, that's just all product. That a lot of it is product. Or I can correct that. The video made it seem like a lot of that product is product that's just going to get thrown away. And I've also seen the other videos where they show, yeah, we ship it offshore, off away from the US, and there's these different cities in various third world countries that are just inundated with waste product. So much so that they can't even use it, and it's just filling landfills for them and creating a toxic environment for them. So that, to me, there's this whole other piece of looking at this whole returns and the way this is getting handled and the implications, which comes back to ESG reporting to me, and really looking at what really is the downstream impact of all of these things, which is why I think a lot of that came in tied to environmental. It's like we should be looking at the whole supply chain, and in this case, the whole demand chain, and understanding the impacts that we're having on the environment.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, at least the way it was presented in that video, that was very upsetting to see, frankly. Just all of the amount of waste and, impact and all of that stuff. So, when we talk about ESG and adding additional variables to the reporting of organizations, I mean, I would love to see some actual metrics around, what that global environmental impact is.
It's huge. And also it creates secondary markets, right? So
Right.
what happens is all these returns go back to Amazon. And if you choose as a seller to have Amazon handle your returns, which most of them do because it is so expensive otherwise, they go into warehouses. Amazon packages up trucks, like full giant trucks full of returns, and they sell them by the truckload. And then you get these little shops or auction houses or liquidation places that buy the trucks, and they bid on the trucks. And so there's a whole back end bidding system where you bid on the trucks of returns, and the returns aren't just Amazon. It's, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, like retail storefronts as well. And most of these large national sellers are part of this network. Walmart's one of them, right? Target, all of them have this as part of their back end where they put their trucks of returns where you're blind if you buy a truck. You have no idea what's on it.
Right.
Sometimes they'll put like an estimated value, but like
Yep.
if you're buying a truck of returns from Home Depot, it might say tools. You don't know what kind of tools it is, right? Like it could be screwdrivers or it could be power tools that are worth a lot, right? But also like size, you don't know how
Yep.
big the stuff is or how much time. Like when you're bidding on a truck from Costco, it might say furniture. You don't know if it's patio furniture, bedroom furniture, couches. Like you could get a whole truck that's just like 3 couches. And then you spent $10,000 on 3 couches and you can't sell them, right? And so there's a lot that goes into the secondary market, and there's warehouses and storefronts that liquidate that, as well as auction houses. And so it is fascinating. And they'll buy them like they know, they have their own algorithms figuring out like if it says this, then the value is probably this. And if it's this time of the year, like this is the type of product you get. And they're able to figure out which ones to bid on, which ones to buy, when to buy them, and then get rid of the product and liquidate. And then most of the time it's to consumers. Occasionally it's to businesses. But the majority of those liquidations go to consumers, like end consumers that are like, well, I don't care if this sheet set was returned. I'm going to wash it. Hopefully it has all the
Yep.
pieces.
I have a buddy of mine who bought a whole pallet. He just bought a pallet of stuff. He bought a new house and he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy a pallet and see what I end up with it. And that was it. He got a bunch of sheet sets. He got some dishes. Like it was one of those like home goods pallets,
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean, just really cool. And you're absolutely right. There's actually like a liquidator storefront near my dad's in Tennessee where they get in all the products and they open on Monday and basically everything is like $10 on Monday. And then on Tuesday, everything is $8 and it keeps going down. It sounds so cool. Like I actually do love the idea of some of the small business and resale opportunities that do come out of this.
Right. And so the waste sometimes is absolutely waste that ends up in a landfill or ends up being shipped to other countries and not being usable. And also there's the secondary market and a tertiary market. So the pallets are the tertiary market. The trucks go first, the liquidation centers, then if they can't sell it off or they have too much or there wasn't what they expected, then they'll put together pallets and sell those. And so you end up with like all these different markets going on. And I only know so much about this because I have a friend who runs a liquidation center that we found. Actually, Donnie came with me there once because I think it's really fun and weird, and there's always bizarre closeouts. And then you're like digging through random stuff, and you're like, I don't even know what this is. Like, okay. But my partner and I were considering investing in one. And so I did a ton of due diligence on how this works and the consistency of it, the pricing behind it, looking at like all the different modes, the competition. And it's really a very fascinating business. And people love deals. And these are, you're not pegged to the cost of production or profiting off of that. You are now pegged to the cost of buying this truck and your rent, basically. And it makes a big difference in the way you're able to price products and liquidate. And for the original business, it is a business decision to price at a point where you can absorb the returns and you know that you'll still be okay. You can absorb all the fees.
Exactly. The Byron said all these home goods, and that made me think too that it's not just this liquidation side, but we've got like Home Goods and Marshalls and Ross that are all part of this. Ones from the department stores as well. So it's not just an e-commerce. Well, you also mentioned Home Depot and these others that come into it as well. But so there's this whole, when you dig into the industry and you really start to learn, there's like all these nuances, and that's the benefit of specializing, right? And understanding an industry really in depth.
Right. Well, and retail waste has been a thing we've known about forever, and clothing waste and what happens in fashion and like, quick fashion or whatever they're calling it, where you just have clothes that aren't supposed to last. They're just supposed to look good for a season and then end up in the trash somewhere, which is really awful. And And so, but when you look at retail in general, you have always had the primary market, the secondary market, the tertiary markets. And so it's just building in e-commerce. And the only difference is that you have to ship things. So you have extra waste, right? There's more of that. But, when you sell to Marshalls or TJ Maxx or whoever, whatever store designer, whoever had overstock, they're still shipping it somewhere and then distributing it out to the storefront. So I don't know. It's all wasteful. Products are wasteful, but we live in a materialistic society. So
And that's definitely a conversation for another one because I know that's on all of our minds as well. Well, unless you guys have additional things, I think I'm going to call it a wrap because I think we've really teased out the importance of specialization and also the fact that this is an opportunity. So if you're someone, you want to help small businesses, you want to help small entrepreneurs, this is one of those things. Come in, understand, do the research, and you can really help them be more profitable by looking at all these things and factoring it into the business model.
Well said.
absolutely.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you in
Thanks,
another
guys.
episode. Ciao.
See y'all.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.